The person who seems hardest to reach may sometimes be the person who is feeling more deeply than they know how to show. That sounds like a contradiction. Forward. But this is where avoidant attachment becomes especially misunderstood. An avoidant person can care deeply while appearing distant. They can miss you while staying silent. Forward. They can feel emotionally connected while acting unusually controlled. And in some cases, the stronger their feelings become, the more carefully they try to manage those feelings. Forward. This is why reading an avoidant relationship only through words can be incredibly misleading. The real story is often hidden in behavior. Forward. There is a major difference between an avoidant who simply enjoys your attention and an avoidant who is slowly allowing you to become a permanent part of their emotional world. Forward. That difference can be subtle. It may not look like constant texting. It may not look like dramatic declarations of love. It may not even look romantic at first. Instead, forward, it can appear through small changes that reveal something much deeper. They begin letting you see parts of themselves that they normally keep protected. They become more consistent. Forward. They start including you in decisions. They allow your support instead of immediately rejecting it. They begin returning to difficult conversations instead of disappearing from them. Forward. And perhaps most importantly, they slowly stop treating emotional closeness as something they must escape. This is the part that most people miss. Forward. Avoidant attachment is not the same thing as an inability to love. A person with avoidant attachment can experience attraction, attachment, affection, and commitment. Forward. The difficulty often appears around vulnerability, dependence, emotional exposure, and the feeling of losing personal freedom. Closeness can activate a conflict inside them. Forward. One part of them may want connection. Another part may want distance. One part may want to trust you. Another part may warn them that depending on someone is dangerous. Forward. So they create space. They become quiet. They control their emotions. They focus on independence. Sometimes they even convince themselves that they do not need the relationship. Forward. But here's the fascinating part. When an avoidant begins to experience someone as emotionally safe, that internal pattern can start changing, not instantly, not perfectly. Forward. And usually not in some dramatic movie-like moment. The change can happen slowly, almost silently. The person who once kept everything private may suddenly tell you something personal. Forward. The person who usually handles every problem alone may ask for your opinion. The person who used to disappear during difficult conversations may stay. Forward. The person who once treated emotional dependence as weakness may begin to understand that needing someone does not mean losing yourself. Forward. These changes can reveal much more than a sudden romantic message ever could. And there is a lesser known detail that makes this even more interesting. Forward. For someone with strong avoidant tendencies, emotional closeness can create two opposite experiences at the same time. Forward. They can want the connection and feel threatened by the connection. They can value you and still need space. They can feel attachment and still struggle to express it. Forward. That does not mean every distant person secretly loves you. This distinction matters. Avoidant attachment is not a magic explanation for every confusing relationship. Forward. Sometimes distance means distance. Sometimes inconsistency means a lack of interest. Sometimes someone simply does not want the relationship. Forward. So the goal of this video is not to convince you that every avoidant person who pulls away secretly wants you forever. The goal is much more important. Forward. We are going to look at the behavioral changes that can reveal when an avoidant person is moving from emotional self-protection towards genuine attachment. Forward. Because there's a huge difference between someone coming back because they miss your attention and someone changing the way they relate to you because they do not want to lose the relationship. Forward. That difference can change everything. Think about the usual pattern. You get close. They pull away. You become anxious. They become more distant. You stop chasing. Forward. Suddenly they return. This cycle can create powerful emotional confusion. Their return can feel like proof of love. Their silence can feel like rejection. Forward. Their attention can feel intense. Then their distance can feel devastating. But intensity is not always intimacy. A sudden return is not always commitment. Forward. And jealousy is not always love. The strongest evidence is usually quieter. It is found in patterns. It is found in what they repeatedly do when there is no emotional emergency. Forward. It is found in how they behave when you are not chasing them. It is found in whether they make room for you when there is nothing forcing them to do so. Forward. This is where the idea of being wanted forever becomes more realistic. A person does not demonstrate long-term love simply by fearing your absence. Forward. They demonstrate it by becoming willing to participate in your presence. That means allowing you into their real life, not just their romantic moments, their ordinary moments. Forward. Their difficult moments, their uncertain moments, their future plans, their private thoughts, their weaknesses, their decisions, their emotional world. Forward. And this can be especially meaningful for someone who has spent years protecting their independence, because for an avoidant person, letting someone matter can feel risky. Forward. The more important you become, the more there is to lose. That can create an unusual emotional paradox. Forward. The relationship becomes more valuable at exactly the same time that vulnerability becomes more frightening. This is why the signs we are about to explore are not about chasing harder. Forward. They are not about playing games. They are not about becoming distant so an avoidant will panic. And they are not about trying to manipulate someone into commitment. Forward. They are about recognizing genuine change. You will learn how to tell the difference between temporary attention and deeper emotional investment. Forward. You will learn why vulnerability can be one of the strongest signs. You will see why consistency may matter more than romantic intensity. Forward. You will understand why an avoidant asking for your support can sometimes reveal more than 1,000 affectionate words. Forward. You will also learn why their behavior during kafiq, also about bored their feelings than their behavior during the happiest moments. And near the end, forward, we will get to the most important sign of all. Forward. The sign that separates someone who simply does not want to lose access to you from someone who is genuinely learning how to build a lasting relationship with you. Forward. Because the ultimate question is not whether an avoidant can love deeply. They can. The real question is whether that love is becoming strong enough to change the way they behave. Forward. That is where everything becomes clear, because love is not proven by one emotional night. It is proven through repeated choices. It is shown through vulnerability. Forward. Through consistency. Forward. Through accountability, through repair, through investment, and through the willingness to stay connected even when closeness feels uncomfortable. Forward. So if someone in your life has seemed emotionally guarded, difficult to read, or deeply independent, pay close attention to what comes next. Forward. Some of the strongest signs may look surprisingly ordinary, and one of them may completely change the way you interpret their behavior. Welcome to relationship reality. Forward. If you want to understand the psychology behind complicated relationships without the confusion, subscribe to the channel and stay with us. Forward. Avoidant attachment is often misunderstood as a lack of emotion, but that is not what it means. At its core, avoidant attachment is a way of managing closeness. Forward. It involves how a person handles vulnerability, independence, emotional dependence, and intimacy. When emotional closeness starts feeling intense, forward, an avoidantly attached person may create distance to feel safe again. That distance can be confusing. They may care about someone and still need more space than that person expects. Forward. They may enjoy emotional connection and then suddenly feel uncomfortable when the relationship becomes too intense. Forward. They may want love while also fearing the loss of independence that can come with it. This creates a strange emotional conflict. They can move toward you and away from you. Forward. They can feel connected and still protect themselves. They can miss you without knowing how to express that feeling. Forward. And this is one reason people often make a serious mistake when trying to understand avoidant behavior. They assume distance automatically means there is no love. It does not. Forward. Avoidant attachment can create difficulties with intimacy, relationship satisfaction, emotional support, and communication. But attachment style is not a permanent sentence. Forward. People can develop more secure ways of relating through experience, self-awareness, supportive relationships, and healthier emotional patterns. Forward. That means an avoidant person is not automatically incapable of deep love. They are not automatically incapable of commitment. Forward. They are not automatically destined to leave every relationship. The more important question is how they behave when someone becomes emotionally important to them. Forward. Because there is a huge difference between attraction and attachment. Attraction can be immediate. Forward. Attachment develops through repeated emotional experiences. Someone's like, say, be attracted to you because of chemistry, excitement, attention, or physical connection. Forward. But lasting attachment requires something much deeper. It requires emotional investment. It requires trust. It requires repeated contact. Forward. It requires a growing sense that this person belongs in your life. For an avoidant person, that process can be especially revealing. Forward. They may not announce that they are becoming attached. They may not suddenly become extremely expressive. Instead, the evidence can appear in small changes. Forward. They start telling you more. They become more reliable. They remember details that matter to you. They allow you to help them. They begin asking for your opinion. Forward. They make space for you in their routines. And during conflict, they may begin staying present instead of immediately escaping. Forward. These changes matter because they require something an avoidant person may normally protect very carefully. Emotional access, the key is consistency. Forward. One affectionate message does not prove deep attachment. One emotional conversation does not prove commitment. One jealous reaction does not prove love. Forward. Even one intense reunion after distance does not tell you the whole story. The pattern matters more than the moment. A person can become emotional because they fear losing attention. Forward. They can return because they miss familiarity. They can suddenly become affectionate because distance has activated their desire for connection. Forward. But lasting attachment looks different. It continues after the emotional intensity fades. They still communicate. They still invest. They still make room for you. Forward. They still attempt to repair problems. They still allow vulnerability. That is where the real story begins. Forward. Because the strongest evidence of deep attachment is not how intensely someone reacts when they are afraid of losing you. Forward. It is how consistently they treat you when they feel safe enough to stay. And once you understand that difference, forward, the quiet changes in an avoidant person become much easier to recognize. Forward. One of the clearest signs that an avoidant person is becoming deeply attached is not a sudden declaration of love. It is access. Forward. Access to the parts of themselves they normally keep protected. Forward. For someone who strongly values independence, privacy, and emotional control, letting another person into their inner world can feel surprisingly risky. Forward. This is why the small moments can matter so much. An avoidant person may not sit down and say, I am afraid of losing you. Instead, forward, they may tell you about something that happened years ago. They may mention a painful experience from their childhood. They may tell you about a fear they rarely discuss. Forward. They may admit that something hurt them. They may even reveal an insecurity and then quickly change the subject. That moment can seem ordinary. But emotionally, forward, it may represent something much bigger. They allowed you to see behind the wall. Avoidant people often learn to manage difficult emotions by relying heavily on themselves. Forward. Independence can become more than a preference. It can become a form of emotional protection. If they can handle everything alone, they do not have to depend on anyone. Forward. If they do not depend on anyone, rejection becomes less threatening. And if they keep their most vulnerable feelings private, forward, another person cannot easily reach the places that hurt the most. Then someone enters their life who starts to feel different. Slowly, the rules can change. Forward. They begin telling you things they normally keep inside. They may share their worries. They may talk about family problems. They may reveal old disappointments. Forward. They may admit when they feel uncertain. They may tell you something embarrassing. They may even ask for your opinion about a decision they would normally make alone. Forward. These are not always dramatic moments. Sometimes they happen during a completely normal conversation. That is what makes them easy to miss. Forward. A person who is deeply avoidant may express vulnerability indirectly. Instead of saying, I trust you, they may give you information that requires trust. Instead of saying, forward, you matter to me, they may start letting you know what is happening inside their head. Instead of saying, I feel safe with you, they may stop hiding every difficult emotion. Forward. And there is another subtle change. They allow you to see them when they are not at their best. They may answer you while stressed. They may admit that they are confused. Forward. They may show frustration without immediately disappearing. They may let you know that something is bothering them. Forward. This matters because intimacy is not simply spending more time together. True intimacy involves psychological access. Forward. It means another person begins to matter inside your emotional world. Research on attachment and intimacy has found an important tension in avoidant patterns. Forward. People with higher avoidance can still desire closeness, while also using strategies that reduce emotional dependence and protect their independence. That creates the paradox. Forward. They can want connection and still fear what connection requires. They can love someone and still struggle with emotional exposure. Forward. So when an avoidant person begins voluntarily giving you access to their private world, pay attention, especially when that access becomes more consistent. Forward. Because once you become someone they trust with their uncertainty, their fears, and the parts of themselves they usually hide, forward, the relationship is no longer existing, only on the surface. You are beginning to occupy a different place in their emotional life, forward. And that becomes even more revealing when their independence starts making room for you without making them feel like they are losing themselves, forward. One of the most meaningful signs of deep attachment is also one of the easiest to overlook: consistency, not intensity, not one emotional conversation, forward. Not a sudden burst of affection after days of silence, consistency. This matters because avoidant behavior can sometimes create a confusing pattern. A person may become very close, forward, then suddenly create distance. They may open up, then become quiet. They may show strong affection, then act emotionally detached, forward. That cycle can make intensity feel like proof of love, but intensity and stability are not the same thing. A sudden return can feel powerful, forward. A long emotional message can feel powerful. A passionate reunion can feel powerful. Yet none of these moments can tell you whether someone is building a stable emotional connection, forward. The more revealing question is much simpler. What happens after the emotional intensity disappears? This is where genuine change begins to show itself, forward. An avoidant person who is becoming more emotionally invested may gradually become more predictable. They may still need personal space. They may still become overwhelmed sometimes, forward. They may still struggle with difficult emotions, but instead of disappearing without explanation, they begin communicating, forward. Instead of leaving you guessing, they give you some idea of what they need. Instead of ending every uncomfortable conversation, they may take a break and return later, forward. That return is important because conflict can activate protective patterns. When people with insecure attachment experience stress, forward, their usual ways of regulating emotion can become stronger. For some avoidantly attached people, that can involve emotional distancing, suppressing feelings, withdrawing, forward, or trying to handle everything alone. So the real change is not that they never feel uncomfortable. The real change is what they do with that discomfort. They begin staying present, forward. They begin learning that emotional discomfort does not automatically mean the relationship is dangerous, forward. They begin discovering that a difficult conversation can end without destroying their independence. And slowly, their behavior becomes more reliable. They follow through on promises, forward. They remember important things. They make an effort even when the relationship is not giving them an emotional high. They show up during ordinary days, forward. That last part is especially important. Anyone can be intensely affectionate during a romantic moment. The real test happens on a boring Tuesday. There is no dramatic reunion, forward. There is no fear of losing you. There is no emotional crisis forcing them to reach out. They simply choose to remain connected. That is investment, forward. And investment often tells you more than emotional intensity. Another powerful sign is repair. An avoidant person may once have viewed conflict as a reason to escape, forward. Now they begin viewing conflict as something that can be worked through. They may return after cooling down. They may explain why they became distant, forward. They may acknowledge that their behavior affected you. They may apologize. They may try a different response next time. These changes can be small, forward. But repeated small changes can completely transform a relationship. Because attachment is not only about how strongly someone feels, forward. It is also about how they behave when those feelings become difficult to manage. A person can love you and still struggle. A person can care deeply and still need space. Forward. But if the attachment is becoming healthier, the pattern should slowly become more stable. The endless chase and withdrawal begins losing its power. Forward. You are no longer constantly trying to recover the connection. Forward. They are participating in maintaining it, and that brings us to the most revealing test of all. Roam the emotional intensity, roam the fear, roam the chase. Forward. Remove the dramatic reunion. Then look at what remains. If they still communicate, still invest, still follow through, and still make room for you, something deeper may be developing. Forward. Because when someone truly begins making you part of their emotional world, consistency can become the quiet evidence that their feelings are no longer just a reaction. Forward. They are becoming a choice. The deepest change in an avoidant person is not always the way they love you. Sometimes it is the way they handle discomfort. Forward. Because anyone can be affectionate when everything feels easy. The real test begins when emotions become uncomfortable. That is when old defenses can appear. Forward. An avoidant person may suddenly become quiet. They may change the subject. They may act as if nothing matters. They may convince themselves that they are better off alone. Forward. Or they may create distance before the other person has a chance to get too close. These reactions can become automatic. They are often ways of reducing emotional pressure. Forward. But something changes when an avoidant person begins feeling safer inside the relationship. The old defense does not always disappear. Instead, a new response begins competing with it. Forward. They may still feel uncomfortable, but they communicate. They may say they need some time. They may explain that something overwhelmed them. Forward. They may tell you that a certain situation hurt them. That is a major shift because there is a huge difference between needing space and using space to avoid emotional responsibility. Forward. Healthy space has communication. Avoidance often has disappearance. And this difference becomes especially important during conflict. Forward. An avoidant person who is becoming more emotionally secure may start saying things they once kept hidden. They might admit, "That hurt me." They might say, "I felt ignored." Forward. They might explain, "I did not know how to handle that conversation." They might even admit, "I reacted badly." Those sentences may sound simple, but emotionally, forward, they require exposure. They require the person to admit that another human being has the power to affect them. For someone who has learned to protect independence, forward, that can feel extremely uncomfortable. Forward. Another important sign is the ability to admit mistakes. Instead of immediately becoming defensive, they begin listening. Instead of turning cold, they stay engaged. Forward. Instead of treating criticism as an attack, they try to understand what happened. This does not mean they suddenly become perfect communicators. Forward. They will still have difficult moments. They may still shut down sometimes. They may still need time alone. The difference is what happens afterward. Do they return? Do they explain? Forward. Do they repair? Do they try to understand? This is where deactivation becomes important. Forward. Deactivation is the process of reducing awareness or expression of attachment needs and emotions. A person may focus on flaws, minimize the importance of the relationship, forward, to suppress feelings or create emotional distance. Emotional regulation is different. Regulation means the emotion is still there, but the person learns how to handle it. Forward. They do not need to erase the feeling. They do not need to run from it. They can experience discomfort and remain connected. That is a powerful change. Forward. Because love does not remove fear. it gives a person a reason to work through fear. And sometimes the most meaningful affection is not dramatic at all. Forward. It may look like checking whether you got home safely, remembering something important you mentioned weeks ago, helping with a problem, making time when they are busy. Forward. Sitting beside you after an argument instead of walking away permanently. These actions may look ordinary, but they can communicate something powerful. I am still here. Forward. That is why difficult moments reveal so much. Stress activates old patterns. If the old pattern was escape, stress may trigger escape. If the new pattern is connection, forward. Stress can become an opportunity to practice staying present. The person may still struggle. Their voice may become quiet. They may need a pause. They may need time to process. Forward. But they come back. They keep talking. They try again. And that willingness matters more than perfection. Forward. The deepest sign of emotional safety is not an avoidant person who never becomes uncomfortable. Forward. It is an avoidant person who becomes uncomfortable and still chooses to work through the discomfort with you. Forward. Because once someone stops seeing vulnerability as something they must escape, another possibility begins to appear. They can remain independent and still be connected. Forward. They can need space and still communicate. They can feel afraid and still stay. And that is when their relationship with commitment starts becoming very different. Forward. There is a major difference between wanting someone today and building a life that includes them tomorrow. That difference becomes especially important with an avoidant person. Forward. An avoidant may feel strong attraction. They may miss you. They may enjoy your presence. They may even become deeply emotionally attached. Forward. But none of those things automatically mean they are ready to build something lasting. Long-term attachment looks different. Forward. It begins when you stop being someone they simply enjoy and become someone they naturally consider when making decisions about their life. The change can be subtle at first. Forward. They start talking about the future with you included. They mention plans several months from now. They talk about places they want to go together. Forward. They begin creating routines that involve both of you. A simple weekend tradition may develop. A regular call may become normal. A shared goal may appear. Forward. These things can look ordinary, but they reveal something important. You are becoming part of their mental picture of the future. And for someone who strongly values independence, forward, that can represent a major psychological shift. They are no longer thinking only in terms of me. They are beginning to think in terms of us. Forward. That does not mean they suddenly lose their individuality. Healthy commitment does not require that. In fact, an avoidant person may still need considerable personal space. Forward. They may still want separate hobbies. They may still enjoy doing things alone. Forward. But the relationship starts becoming part of their life instead of something that competes with their life. That distinction matters. You can see it in everyday decisions. Forward. They ask what you think. They consider your schedule. They remember your priorities. They adjust plans. They make room for your needs. They discuss decisions that affect both of you. Forward. And sometimes they sacrifice convenience. This is one of the strongest signs because commitment eventually costs something. Time, energy, comfort, freedom, attention. Forward. A person who only wants the benefits of a relationship may disappear when effort becomes inconvenient. A person who is deeply invested begins looking for ways to solve the problem. Forward. That does not mean they accept everything. It does not mean they tolerate unhealthy behavior. It means they stop treating every difficulty as a reason to leave. Forward. Research on commitment has shown that commitment is influenced by more than attraction. Investment, relationship satisfaction, perceived alternatives. Forward. And the tendency to persist all play important roles in whether people remain committed. There is also a fascinating detail about avoidant attachment. Forward. Research has found that avoidant individuals can still experience commitment even when they report lower intimacy than more secure individuals. That means deep commitment may not always feel or look like constant romantic intensity. Forward. An avoidant person may care deeply without behaving like the most openly affectionate person in the room. Their attachment may appear through practical actions. Forward. They remember what matters to you. They protect shared plans. They keep promises. They think about consequences before making decisions. Forward. They make changes when something is hurting the relationship. They begin protecting the bond itself. That last part is powerful. Forward. Because once losing you becomes emotionally meaningful. The relationship starts influencing their choices. They may still have moments where they want distance. Forward. But distance is no longer the automatic answer. They start asking a different question. How can I handle this without destroying what we have? Forward. That is a completely different mindset. It means the relationship has become valuable enough to protect. And this is why words alone are never enough. Forward. Someone can say that you are their future. Someone can promise forever. Someone can become intensely emotional for one night. Forward. But deep attachment is revealed through repeated investment. It appears in the choices they make when nobody is watching. It appears when staying connected requires effort. Forward. It appears when the easy option would be to walk away. And slowly you may notice something even more revealing. Forward. The relationship is no longer built around whether they feel close today. It begins to have a sense of continuity. Tomorrow matters. Next month matters. Forward. The next difficult conversation matters. The next decision matters. Because you are no longer simply part of their present emotions. Forward. You are becoming part of the way they organize their life. Forward. And once that happens, the most important question is no longer whether they can picture a future with you. Forward. It is whether their behavior shows that they are willing to build that future one choice at a time. Forward. There is one final shift that can reveal more than all the romantic words in the world. An avoidant person stops treating emotional distance as the easiest solution. Forward. That does not mean they suddenly become completely secure. They may still need space. They may still struggle with vulnerability. Forward. They may still become overwhelmed during intense conversations. They may still protect their independence. But the difference is in what they do next. They communicate, they explain. Forward. They return, they repair. And they remain emotionally responsible for the relationship. Forward. That is a very different pattern from simply disappearing whenever closeness becomes uncomfortable. For example, needing space is not automatically a rejection. A person might say, forward, I need some time to process this. I will talk to you later. That is space with responsibility. Forward. Compare that with disappearing for days without explanation and returning only when they want attention. The behavior may look similar from a distance. Psychologically, forward, it can be very different. The first person is communicating a boundary while protecting the connection. Forward. The second person may be using distance to avoid the emotional responsibility of the connection. This distinction becomes even clearer during conflict. Forward. An avoidant person who is deeply attached may still shut down sometimes, but they begin coming back. They may need an hour, they may need an evening, they may need a day forward. But eventually they return to the conversation. They ask questions, they listen, they explain. They admit when they were wrong, they try to repair what happened forward. That willingness to repair is powerful because relationships are not defined by the absence of conflict. They are shaped by what happens after conflict forward. Attachment avoidance can create problems with intimacy, support, communication, and relationship satisfaction. But attachment patterns can also change forward, and supportive relationship experiences can help people develop healthier ways of responding. This is why one of the biggest mistakes is trying to decode every individual action forward. A sudden text does not prove deep love. Jealousy does not automatically prove commitment forward. A sudden return does not prove that someone wants you forever. Even intense physical or emotional closeness does not prove lasting attachment. The pattern matters. Look at consistency forward. Do they keep showing up? Look at vulnerability. Do they allow you to know what is really happening inside them? Look at accountability. Can they admit when their behavior caused harm forward? Look at investment. Do they put time and effort into maintaining the relationship? Look at repair. Do they return after conflict and work toward resolution? And then look at choice forward. When they have every opportunity to avoid emotional discomfort, do they still choose the relationship? That is where the answer becomes clearer forward. Because deep attachment does not mean an avoidant person will never feel the urge to run. It means running is no longer their only response. They begin developing another option forward. Stay, talk, protest, return, repair, to again. That may not look dramatic, but psychologically it can represent a major change forward. They are learning that close does not automatically mean losing themselves. They are learning that vulnerability does not automatically lead to rejection forward. They are learning that dependence can exist without destroying independence. And they are learning that love requires more than feeling something forward. It requires participating in something. This is also why the idea of wanting someone forever needs to be understood carefully. Forever is not proven by a single emotional reaction forward. It is built through repeated behavior. A person who truly wants a lasting connection begins protecting the relationship even when doing so is inconvenient. They make adjustments forward. They communicate. They make room. They take responsibility. They keep choosing the bond. And perhaps the most powerful sign is simple forward. They stop making you carry the entire relationship. You are no longer the only person reaching out. You are no longer the only one repairing forward. You are no longer the only one trying to understand. They begin meeting you somewhere in the middle. That is the shift to watch, not whether they act perfectly forward, not whether they become emotionally expressive overnight, not whether they chase you when they fear losing you forward. Watch whether their behavior is gradually moving toward connection instead of away from it, because the real goal is not to decode every avoidant person's behavior forward. It is to recognize whether the person in front of you is becoming more capable of secure connection. And when that change becomes real forward, the relationship begins entering a completely different stage where the question is no longer how deeply they fell, but how both people can protect what they're building forward. The deepest sign that an avoidant person loves you is not always a dramatic confession. It may not be constant texting. It may not be intense affection forward. and it may not be a sudden fear of losing you. Sometimes, the clearest proof is much quieter. They start letting you closer. They communicate instead of disappearing. Forward. They share things they once kept hidden. They include you in their life. They become more reliable. They take responsibility when they hurt you. They come back after conflict. Forward. And slowly they begin investing in the relationship instead of protecting themselves from it. That is the difference between attraction and deep attachment. Forward. An avoidant person can still need space. They can still value independence. They can still struggle with vulnerability. Forward. But genuine growth changes what happens after those feelings appear. They communicate the space. They return. They repair. They try again. Forward. And that matters because attachment style is not an excuse for repeatedly hurting someone. Love should not require you to live in permanent confusion. Forward. It should not force you to chase someone just to receive basic communication. It should not make you constantly decode silence, withdrawal, or mixed signals. Forward. Healthy love creates greater emotional safety over time. Not perfect safety, not perfect behavior, but greater safety. And that is the real message behind everything we have discussed. Forward. Do not measure an avoidant person's love only by how intensely they react when they fear losing you. Measure it by what they do when there is nothing to chase. Do they still show up? Forward. Do they still make room for you? Do they still protect the relationship? Do they still choose communication when silence would be easier? Forward. Because anyone can reach for you when they feel you slipping away. The deeper question is, who stays when there is no crisis? Who invests when there is no emotional high? Forward. Who chooses you when there is no fear forcing them to act? That is where temporary desire ends and intentional love begins. Being wanted can feel powerful. Forward. But being intentionally chosen is something much deeper. So if this video helped you understand avoidant love in a different way, give it a like. Forward. And if you want more videos that uncover the psychology behind complicated relationships, subscribe to Relationship Reality. Forward. Because sometimes the most important signs are not the loudest ones. They are the quiet choices someone keeps making when nobody is asking them to stay.